Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Jeff with AES, and today is episode number 1 of what's going to be the new Auto News series on the channel, which is going to be releasing every Friday. That time may vary throughout the day as things change, and I figure out a better way to do this new Auto News segment, but this is super exciting. Today is February 21st, Friday. Hopefully it's the end of the work week for you, but without any further ado, let's go ahead and let's jump into our first bits of Auto News. In first news, many Australians are unhappy, and many of you alike, maybe in the US with the Chevrolet Supersport, as GM has actually killed their Australian brand Holden. The company says it will be ceasing all actions and shutting down all factories in Australia by the end of the year, that year being 2020. So a lot of people have actually been seeing this coming for a long time now, as back in 2016 GM actually ceased manufacturing locally in Australia and moved a lot of the production plants to places like China. And a lot of that has caused people to look at things differently and see the potential of Holden actually shutting down. Just recently, about 2 months ago in late 2019, GM actually ceased productions of the Commodore and the Astra to focus on their SUV and truck markets, similar to what we saw Ford do here in the US. So a lot of people have been seeing the decline of Holden as a company in Australia, leaving many to be very upset, especially with the big chunks of the tax budget from Australian taxpayers going in to help GM be successful in their market, feeling that GM didn't really give it the old college try when they were working on making sure Holden was successful in the company. GM was just saying that they felt the company was not profitable enough. As they went back to Detroit and started doing their calculations, they felt that the cost of keeping Holden up and running and keeping everything going just wasn't cost effective and really didn't make any sense to keep Holden in that market. However, that being said, GM does want to keep selling vehicles in Australia and other parts around there like Oceania, but what they will be doing is they will be working with what used to be Holden Special Vehicles Company to import some regular GM vehicles with the Chevy and possibly GMC badges, but they will be making them right-hand drive for the people of Australia, so there will still be GM vehicles. However, they will be getting of the long and well-known Holden brand, which is really upsetting to a lot of people. I know, especially as car people, for us, I really think Holden is cool. Like if I was to ever buy a Chevy like Supersport or something like that, I would absolutely put all the Holden body kits and Holden badges all over it, and I think that thing would be freaking wicked cool. But of course, GM does say they will keep parts, warranties, and of course support everything up to 10 years after the brand is gone. And of course they will definitely support and be around as long as there are Holden cars to sell. And in addition to that, if you don't know, Holden is actually part of what's called the Australian Supercar Challenge, which is where you see all these crazy four-door cars that are essentially putting out like 600 horsepower racing around tracks in Australia. And Holden is actually locked into this year, and Holden says they will keep racing as long as there are cars in dealership lots. So who knows? There could even be a 2021 season for Holden Racing and Supercar Championships. We just don't know. It really all just depends. All we do know is that GM does want to cease everything and get out by the end of 2020. Moving on to our next news, where Maserati recently unveiled a new video, now hinting that their next super secret sports car will now be called the MC20. Now that name kind of comes from the car we saw in the past that released alongside the Ferrari Enzo, which was the Maserati MC12, using the Ferrari Enzo chassis and the naturally aspirated V12 that came along in that Ferrari Enzo. So it's really exciting to see that we now have a name for this new car, even though it is the MC20. It seems like now that we've gotten to the year 2020, all of the manufacturers have now decided it's okay to change their naming schemes, and everybody just jumped from whatever number they were on and just went straight to 20. They said, you know what, 2020 is a good time to restart everything. So it's just the way it is this year, I guess. So that's kind of interesting. But anyways, what is cool about the car is it has two different versions. It looks like it could be mid-engine from some of the teaser shots we've seen. In addition to that, they say there could be an electric version as well coming out. Man, it's kind of crazy how it seems like almost everything is going to have an electric option these days, including the Mach-E. We won't talk about that. But anyways, if you have seen the teaser shots, which you should definitely check out in the link below, the car looks almost like a cross between a Porsche and like an Alfa Romeo 4C. It's kind of a really weird combination of cars, but what's amazing to me is it looks like a much more calm and tame car compared to what we've seen in the past. Like the MC12 was very much an all-out car that then went to race at different events, and absolutely crazy beast of a car. So it'll be really interesting to see like what we see this one. It is supposed to be racing because for those of you that don't know, MC actually stands for Maserati Corsa, which of course is Italian for, you know, being the race brand, just like we have seen with the Ferrari brands in the past for Squadra Corsa. So what is really interesting to me though is, remember how we mentioned the MC12? The MC12 had that Ferrari Enzo engine in it, the aspirated V12, and for the new Maserati Levante, which is Maserati's SUV, they just started using the Ferrari V8 engine in it, which makes me wonder if this new car, assuming it's going to have like, you know, some crazy power plant in it, what are the odds that it's going to be like a Ferrari V8 based in the mid-engine of that? But it is a little car, so maybe we'll see something else, maybe something similar to what we got with the Alfa Romeo Giulia, where it actually had a V6 that was loosely based off the Ferrari California V8. So that'll be really interesting to see. You should definitely check out the spy shots below if you haven't heard of that car before, because I haven't until I started doing research for this. But it's super exciting to hear about new cars coming from Maserati, and of course to see, you know, what this little thing's going to look like and where it's going to go racing, because if it goes to Le Mans, that could be really cool to see. And now moving on to our Toyota news, which is going to be on the topic of hot hatches, which is really funny because lately Toyota has not been in the news for hot hatches. There's a lot of other things, specifically the Supra, which is super exciting. If you haven't seen that, Toyota is going to be working on the 2021 Toyota Supra, which is now going to come with a 4-cylinder turbo engine, as well as the 6-cylinder turbo that we've already seen in the 2020 model. So it'll be really exciting to see that. Hopefully we'll see a fairly decent price reduction. So there'll also be 2 different Supras, and maybe we'll have to see some crazy builds and designs that people decide to do with these cars. And you'll definitely probably see a lot more of them on the streets now that we have more versions. In addition to that, Toyota has committed to the second generation of the GT86, including the fact that it's going to come with a manual, which is incredibly exciting because in today's day and age, you know, as we get further and further along, we see less manual transmissions and more electric cars. So it's really scary. It's really exciting that they are going to be bringing back the manual transmission for the GT86. I just hope that this time around they do give the car a little bit more power because, as we all know, it was a little bit underpowered. Kind of fun to drive, but very underpowered. So yeah, anyways, onto the hot hatches. So, for those of you who don't know, Toyota did make a GR version of the Yaris, right? Now I know you're saying, Yaris, but it is a GR version of the Yaris, which could be really exciting, and the car did do okay in terms of reviews and what other people thought of the car. However, we did not see the car actually in the US markets for it, and a lot of that is actually skeptical looking at the fact that the US and North America as a whole has really sketchy and really harsh tests as far as crash tests and things like that, where the car may not have fared so well in the subcompact market section, hence why we don't really see a whole lot of those cars. But if you were to go overseas to Japan, where, you know, K cars, or Europe, where there are smart cars and little cars just everywhere, not really a huge thing here in the US, usually attributed to the really harsh testing. But while in an interview, Motor Trend was asking the president of sales, Bob Carter, about the hot hatch issue and why we never received it to the US, because as we know, the US has been seeing a lot more performance models, as us car guys have definitely been craving things like that. He was quoted, "No GR Yaris, but stay tuned. We have an answer for it. It's possible that we bring something else. I'll just leave it at that." So, what do you think that says? Do you think that says that we could be seeing some newer versions of hatchbacks and hot hatches, more performance vehicles to come from Toyota? Like I said, it is really exciting. I would like to see them to get back more towards what we saw in the past, where a lot of performance Toyota vehicles. So the 4-cylinder Supra is going to be really cool, as well as the 6-cylinder. So it's really cool knowing that there could be 2 Supras side by side at each other at like a light or something like that, and one could have way less power than the other one. So the 4-cylinder, I believe, is supposed to come in around 300 horsepower, and the other Supra is coming in around 382 now with the 6-cylinder. So there's a little bit of a horsepower buff there for the 6-cylinder. But as we all know, it made more power than that a lot, so that'll be kind of interesting. But who knows? It looks like the future looks awesome for Toyota, and I can't wait to see what they bring next in the performance market. Moving on to our next big story here, it actually comes from Kia. So for those of you that don't know, there is an SUV that Kia makes called the Telluride. So the Kia executives actually internally call the Kia Telluride the Kia Celluride. And the reasons for that actually stem from the Kia Telluride being one of the Telluride. I'm not really sure what the actual name of it is. I've seen a lot of places call it the Telluride, but I kind of like Telluride better. I feel like it flows a bit better, or maybe that's just the American in me speaking. But anyways, Kia calls it internally, as they announced. James Bell, the director of corporate communications, actually told some journalists that they call the vehicle the Celluride because of how well it's been selling lately. So far, just from the numbers, 2020 in January, we know that the car has sold 4,919 Kias, and that's for January of 2020. And then last year, they actually ended up selling 58,604 vehicles for all of 2019, and now the vehicle did come out a little bit later. I believe it came out in February or March of 19. So keep that in mind when you think about those sales numbers, and relative to what we're seeing from the big, megalo manufacturers like Ford and GM, those numbers aren't quite as big. For example, I believe the Ford Explorer in 2019 did about 180,000 Ford Explorers sold for the year of 2019, but for this manufacturer, that's a huge deal. Like for Kia, that's making up a huge chunk of their sales. The Kia Telluride by itself makes about 12% of the income. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen a Telluride, but to me, I think it's a really good looking vehicle. Every time I see one of those, I think, gosh, I'd really like to have one of those. Like, if I have my truck and I was looking for a SUV or like a bigger vehicle, I would absolutely give it at least a test drive, take a look at it. From my experience, I feel like Kias tend to have a lot of value to them, and they feel really good, at least in that initial value. I don't have a lot of experience with them long term, but I am really impressed with new Kias, and I think that it is a good sign for the company. I think we can expect a lot of great things from them in the future, especially looking at the design style. I mean, especially those headlights. Those headlights, they look so good. But that's a super funny story. I loved hearing about Kia's little stuff, but anyways, let's go on and let's move on to the little news for Friday. So in other news, Aston Martin has actually canceled their plans to race the Valkyrie at Le Mans, which is really disappointing because that is an absolutely wicked vehicle. If you don't know the whole partnership between AMR and of course Red Bull in producing the Valkyrie, which is their wicked cool race car. However, they said they will still be delivering the car to those who have ordered their Valkyries. They will just not be taking the car to Le Mans, which is really disappointing. Hopefully they take it to some other racetracks, but I'm not so sure about that one, but But next in news, of course, Volkswagen is coming out with a brand new GTI. I don't know what number we're at. Maybe this is the 8th generation, Mark 7, Mark 8. I'm not really sure. I don't really keep track of Volkswagen GTI generations. I'm sorry, the Golf. But there is going to be another GTI coming. It should be unveiled at the Geneva Motor Show for 2020 here, so it should be coming up very shortly. I believe it is less than 2 weeks away. But of course, in addition to that, of course, it all depends on when you're watching this, but in addition to that, Volkswagen has said that the highest horsepower version of the Volkswagen Golf platform should be making around 296 horsepower, but judging from those numbers, that's probably the Golf R, so we can expect the GTI to be making a little bit less than that. Of course, depending on where you fit and what sort of car you're looking for, could be exciting news. It looks like there is going to be a fairly big face change, but it will be using the similar 2-liter turbocharged engine, so keep an eye out for that one when it comes up at the Geneva Motor Show, of course. In addition to that, Ford is going to be announcing and showing off the new Bronco models, with the initial show off should be here in March, which is just around the corner. In addition to that, they will be showing off a smaller sport Bronco that'll be showed off somewhere in April. And then lastly, in our other little stories, Volvo has made an electric semi. And that's all I have to say about that, because it's a semi-truck and I'm not really a huge trucker guy, but that's how I feel about that. I'm sorry if you're a truck guy. And with that, that is the episode over and done with for today. Again, this is Friday, February 21st, 2020. These auto news videos are going to be releasing every week, just because I don't think there's enough footage really to do more than one, at least right now, for me and my sort of like workload that I have. But so definitely make sure you're subscribed so you do not miss the future episodes that should be coming out every Friday morning. Again, unless that changes otherwise, which I will specify, but these are great. A lot of fun for me to do with the research and everything. Don't forget to like that if you liked the video, and then of course comment below and tell me what your favorite story was. Tell me what you think about some of these plans for some of the different manufacturers, how you feel about Australia, or if you're excited for the new Golf or not, or maybe even Toyota's performance line. Crazy, incredible stuff. And of course, it would be super huge help to me if you could comment below and let me know if you have any ideas for improvements to make the show a little bit better, to change things. Of course, I will be changing things as I figure out with it. I'm kind of winging it as I go, but I'm super excited to finally start the series as I wanted to do it for so long. So Don't forget to subscribe, check out some other videos, and of course, thank you so much for watching. My name is Jeff, and I will see you next time.